Now friends, if we look at the index of our GST syllabus, we have total 15 chapters. Chapter 1 is introduction. So it's about basic like what is GST, what was earlier law, how it was implemented. So we are going to cover it because there may be some MCQs asked from this chapter. So we are going to cover. But if we start from chapter 2, supply. So the actual GST, the GST law starts from chapter 2 to chapter 15. Now for better understanding, I have divided your syllabus into 3 parts. Now what are those 3 parts? The part 1 is related to transactions. Like whatever transactions are taking place, purchase, sale. So how that transaction will be governed, will be controlled. So for the transaction, we have few chapters. Like then second is how to administer GST, like how to levy, how to do registrations. The second part comes about administration of GST is a nothing to do with the transaction. Then third part, few people have habit of doing tax evasion. So how can tax evasion be prevented? So there are so many measures incorporated in GST law, but at CA Inter syllabus, 2 topics have been covered, which are not directly related to tax evasion, but you can say the purpose of incorporating such things in law is to avoid tax evasion or tax theft or like this. So first we understand what are the chapters which are covered under transaction. So now what is GST? I think we all are, whether you have studied GST earlier or not, we know GST is applicable when we buy something, when we sell something. So GST is on supply of goods or services. The first chapter, chapter number 2, that we have supply. Like what is supply, what will be treated as supply, what will not be treated as supply. Now every supply may not be taxable. So once a transaction is covered as supply, we have to check whether that is chargeable or not. So for that we have chapter number 3, charge. Now some transaction may be chargeable to tax, but government may specifically exempt those transactions, like for education, healthcare. There are n number of things which are being used by common person, which are being used by maybe a poor person, who cannot afford to pay GST. So certain transactions of supply of services or goods are being exempted. So first, to levy GST, what we have to check? Sir, whether it is supply or not. Second, whether chargeable or not. Then, is it exempted or not? Friends, we are going to cover each and every chapter in detail. We are just looking at the arrangement of chapters now. So, exemption, if exempted, well and good. If not exempted, then tax has to be paid. Now, when has to be paid? On how much value it has to be paid? And what should be the place of supply? So, after this exemption chapter, we are going to cover place of supply, time of supply, value of supply. That is your chapter 4, the exemption is chapter 5, place 4, 6 and 7. And then we got a chapter called input tax credit. Like whatever I have purchased, I might have paid the tax to the seller. So I will get input tax credit of that one. Then we have related to administration. First one is chapter number 9, that is registration. Any person who is supplying which is chargeable to tax has to register under GST. So how registration will be done, who is required to register, all are covered under chapter number 9. Now once I am registered in GST, I have to issue a document in which I will mention like what are the taxable value, what is the GST amount and all the things. So that is called as invoice. So the next chapter covers your invoice. Now once invoice is issued, for how much time it has to be retained, how to record it, then we got chapter number 11, that is accounts and records. Now once invoice is issued, I got some taxable supply, I have to pay to government GST. So how will I pay? What is the frequency of payment? Then we have chapter number 14, sorry, we have chapter number 13, that is related to payment, and after payment we have to file return to the government. So that is chapter number 15, return. Now for tax evasion measures, we have two chapters which are not linked with this. Chapter number 14, TDS and TCS, and chapter number 12, e-way bill. E-way bill is again a very separate chapter which are not related to accounts and records, invoice and all. So we are going to cover in this sequence only. Okay. So I think you can see all the chapters are covered here except chapter number 1, which is introduction. We are going to take this chapter first only because it will help us to get familiar with the GST law. So after introduction, we will take supply, then chapter number 3 charge, then we will take exemption. We will not take chapter number 4, we will take chapter number 5, then place of supply, time of supply, value of supply, ITC. After all this, registration, invoice, accounts and record, payment, return, and after completing all this, last we will take TDS, TCS and e-way bill. Okay friends. So let's start with chapter number 1, introduction of GST.